but we're going to keep moving along. We're going to go back to Becky Brown here to kind of update us on our case that we've started the day with, and then we'll come back to Monica to kind of talk us through the critical care and guideline management.
Okay, so
I appreciate, sorry to interrupt, just I appreciate your invitation, and as you know, I have to do an urgent surgery, but thank you again.
Great, thanks Dave, we appreciate it.
Okay, so back to our child, our little 3-year-old boy. Well, in the ED, we found that he had a severe traumatic brain injury with multiple bleeds, contusion, diffuse axonal injury, and had some solid organ injury, pretty severe. And when he arrived in the ICU, he had a temperature of 36.8, a pulse of 137, and a blood pressure of 96/58, so a bit tachycardic. The neurosurgeons assessed him, and he had a Glasgow Coma scale of 6. He wasn't open his eyes, he wasn't in no verbal, and he was withdrawing to some pain on the right, but really not moving anything on the left. Obviously, multiple consults were involved, and neurosurgery regarding the traumatic brain injury recommended that we start him on some Keppra, do some serial neural checks, maintain the platelets greater than 100, and INR less than 1.4, and a mean arterial pressure of 85 to 90, and get a follow-up CT in 6 hours of both the head and the C-spine, where there was that questionable C5, C6 finding on the C-spine films. So during this early course, he was given some blood, 20 mLs per kilo of packed red blood cells, some FFP for a crit of 21 and an INR of 1.52, had a good response with improvement in those parameters. He did require some norepinephrine for a brief period of time to maintain his mean arterial pressures within the defined parameters, and had multiple bradycardic episodes during this time, got an EKG and an echo, which were read as normal. So, you know, obviously the patients with traumatic brain injuries, we did the follow-up CT scan of the head in the 6 hours, and we found that he did have a worsening of his brain injury with a worsening extraaxial and parenchymal hemorrhages, but no significant mass effect, and he had multiple areas of new parenchymal hemorrhage with contusions and shear injury. At that same time, we got the C-spine CT, and there were no cervical spines noted. So one of the questions that comes up is, can that C-collar be removed? And I guess it would depend on whether Dr. Piet or Dr. Adelson was on call, and does the patient need further imaging? And so those are just some questions to keep in mind there that may have already at least talked about. We did get the neurosurgeons further recommended an MRI of his brain, which confirmed the cortical contusions and showed that he did have an extensive hemorrhagic shear type injury to all the lobes of the bilateral cerebral hemispheres and the corpus callosum. And the MRI of the C-spine showed no injury of the cervical spine cord itself, but did have some edema of the ligaments of C2 to C7, suggesting a ligamentous injury. And so neurosurgery at that point recommended a C-collar for 6 weeks. But just in looking at you know, the IC management of of traumatic brain injury, a lot of questions come up, and I think a lot of these are going to be addressed by our subsequent speakers. But you know, are there standard protocols, and what are those for children? When do you do repeat imaging, and with what type of imaging do you do? We've talked a little bit about the indications for operative intervention and ICP monitoring, but how do you manage that elevated ICP? Indications for saline. Once you're on that, how do you manage the sodium and the mean arterial pressures? And then when do you do seizure prophylaxis, and what are the preferred drugs? And then we're also going to talk a little bit about rehab consults and how do you treat storming, I imagine. So I will now turn it over to Rich.